Welcome back to Keep It Real Boxing. This is Cypherbox. So I want to do a follow-up video on this whole Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder saga. Now I did a video on Tuesday when the WBA put their foot down and said 24 hours to sign AJ versus Povetkin or we strip Anthony Joshua. Not only that, I also talked about how it was quite funny that a story leaked that day that DAZN will be showing Anthony Joshua versus Povetkin out in America. Not only that, if you look at the picture that I've got on the screen right now, this picture was taken by Eddie Hearn on posted on his Instagram account on actually past midnight on Wednesday morning, right? Just past midnight on Wednesday morning, and that was Tuesday night, where they're all sitting together having a nice little meal. And guess who's sitting right next to Anthony Joshua on his right? Yeah, you got it, the head of DAZN and the Perform Group. Yeah, funny that, innit? So on the same day, you had the WBA put their foot down and say, yep, you got 24 hours to sign the contract sign the fight for AJ versus Povetkin. The story leaks out that DAZN is potentially going to show the fight, is going to stream and broadcast the fight out in the US on their DAZN, on Eddie Hearn's new DAZN US app. And then on the same day again, we get this picture where they're all sitting around a table, and in the caption it said making plans, right? So I think that's a little bit weird that that's all happened in one day, and it's all been kind of revealed in one day as well. But like I said in my last video, I think that's very suspect. I gave my reasons as why. Go and watch that video if you want to know why I felt it was a little bit dodgy in my opinion. But hey ho, I want to move on and talk about some other things. There are some things I'm going to go over. In the last video, I didn't get to capture everything. It was an hour-long video. So in this video, there's more information I want to talk about and give you more examples of where I feel Eddie Hearn once again is contradicting himself. And I've said this from day one. When I started with this topic, yeah, I started as a neutral. Yeah, a lot of people don't want to believe me, yeah. I even actually accused Deontay Wilder of some stuff, but then I started listening to Eddie Hearn even more and more. And this was last year in November. Started listening to more and more of Eddie Hearn, and listening to Shelly Fink, and I thought, Eddie, what you're saying doesn't add up. You're constantly picking out things that he contradicts himself. So once again, I'm going to do another video on that, alright? And I'm going to give you examples like I always do, give you article links, etc. You'll find all of that stuff in the description of the video. So all the things I'm going to talk about, you'll find article links, video links, etc., interview links, all in the description of the video. Alright, so let's get started. So let's start with the contract details for this new improved $15 million offer. Alright, so the original offer from Team AJ was $12.5 million. Obviously we know Deontay Wilder had made a $50 million counter offer, which AJ turned down, and then Eddie Hearn gave another counter offer to that $50 million, an improved offer on the original $12.5 million, which is the one that we're talking about now, which is the new $15 million offer, flat fee. Okay. So a lot of AJ fans, are asking, well, why does it take 4 days to send back a signed contract? Okay, well, let's get into that then, shall we? So in my last video, I broke down the timeline between the 11th of June all the way up to the point where the WBA turned around and said that that's it, we're putting our foot down, we're giving you 24 hours to sign AJ versus Povetkin, right? I also gave you in that video clear examples of where Eddie Hearn had deliberately done things to delay the signing of the contract, right? So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of it now. Okay, again, because all you guys keep saying, well, why does it take 4 days to sign a contract and return the contract? Alright, you know what? I'll go through it with you guys again, because you know what? All you AJ fans do is ask questions and repeat the same questions. Even though I've answered all your questions, comment sections, and in my videos, all you do is come back, ask the same question, but you rephrase the questions. You never actually bring your own facts or any of your own information or anything you've researched, because we know you don't know any of that. Yeah? But I'm going to do it again, yeah? So, on June 11th, Wilder accepts the $15 million offer, yeah? Finkel requests the contract. Hearn says he's going to send the contract by the 15th of June. The contract doesn't arrive till the 18th of June. That's 3 days later, right? So if you count from the 11th of June to the 18th of June, that's 7 days. Why did it take 7 days to get a contract out? to Shelly Finkel when you said you were going to do it in 4 days, but you took another additional 3 days on top of that? Why? Doesn't take that long, does it? You should have already had a rough idea what the contract was going to look like. Right. Then when you move on, right? Let's move on. So on the 19th, yeah, Finkel asked clarification on a couple of points, yeah? He gets no reply from Eddie Hearn. Here's another delay he creates, Eddie Hearn. On the 21st, which was a Thursday, Finkel requests again from Eddie Hearn to clarify on some points of the contract. Okay? He also goes to the media with this, that Hearn has not replied to his message from the 19th of June. Then Eddie Hearn finally replies to Shelly Finkel on the 22nd of June. And then on the 23rd of June, you saw him in that morning, on Twitter saying the Winkle has been satisfied. Right? My point here is, yeah, and my point here is, if you don't believe me, go watch the latest IFL interview. He admits that he didn't send the contract by the 15th. He sent it a few days later on Monday, the 18th. That's when it arrived with Shelly Finkel. Eddie Hearn has admitted that. So stop all this nonsense, because Eddie Hearn has clearly done things here to delay the signing of the contract. And he's openly admitted that himself. Not only that, on the 24th, Shelly Finkel sends a message out to Eddie Hearn saying that, what's the date and venue for the fight? And he also asks him about the rematch clause, which I will talk about what the rematch clause is later on when I go into the details of the contract. Alright, so the idea was Shelly Finkel was going to send the contract back to Eddie Hearn with those couple of points, saying that, can you put a date and a venue in there? Can you also rethink the rematch clause? Send it back to me. I'll get Deontay to sign it and I'll get it sent back to you by Friday. That's why it was going to take 4 days. So let's stop all this nonsense. Stop playing stupid, yeah, and asking stupid questions. Stop acting ignorant, yeah, and actually use the brain that God gave you, yeah, because I've just explained it to you again. So let's talk about the offer letter, the original offer letter, not the contract, the offer letter, yeah, to Deontay Wilder. He said the fight was going to take place on September 15th at Wembley, yeah, for $15 million flat fee. That's all Deontay Wilder was going to get, right? So Shelly Finkel then asked him, well, how can you compete against Canelo versus Triple G? Okay, how can you compete against Canelo versus Triple G on the same night? Doesn't make sense financially, right? So Eddie Hearn then turned around and said, well, all right, we'll probably make the fight in October or November if we can't do it in September, because if we can't do it in September, we can't have it at Wembley, so we'll do it in October or November at the Principality Stadium in Wales, right? Now this is just the offer letter. Just on the back of the offer letter, Shelly Finkel asked these questions, right? So he's thinking, all right, okay, fine. So we'll do it at the Principality and it'll be either October or November and you'll get back to us in the contract with that. Yeah. So on June 11th, like I said, Deontay Wilder finally accepts the deal. Okay, and Shelly Finkel says, send the contract. Now Eddie Hearn said he's going to send the contract, like I said, by June 15th. Shelly Finkel will receive it by Friday, June 15th. Okay? The contract doesn't arrive till the 18th, which Eddie Hearn in his latest IFL interview has admitted that the contract didn't get to Shelly Finkel till June 18th. Why? Do you know what I mean? It couldn't have been that difficult. You should have had a contract roughly already drawn up for the fight. But anyway, it didn't arrive until June 18th. Like I said, Shelly Finkel then got back to tried to contact Eddie Hearn on the 19th and said, hey, we want some clarification on these points, namely the date and the venue. Eddie Hearn doesn't reply. Shelly Finkel then contacts him again on the 21st, also contacts the media and tells him that Eddie Hearn has not replied to his email from the 19th. Eddie Hearn finally gets back to Shelly Finkel on the 22nd after he's put under pressure because the media are talking about it now, and then on the 23rd puts a tweet out on the Saturday morning saying that the Winkle's been satisfied. Now once again, Eddie Hearn, he's clarified that the fight is going to take place in October and November at the Principality, possibly at the Principality Stadium in Wales. But again, it's not written in the contract. So on the 24th of June, Shelly Finkel gets back to Eddie Hearn, says, we'll send you a signed contract by Friday. We just need you to put in the date and the venue for the fight. Okay, so the idea was Shelly Finkel sends a contract back with notes saying that, could you please put the date and venue in there? Also, can you change the rematch clause? And the rematch clause stated that if AJ loses, he gets a rematch. If Wilder loses, then AJ decides whether Wilder gets a rematch. So basically that means Wilder wouldn't get a rematch. And they didn't like that. They wanted that changed. And that's where the problem lied. But Shelly Finkel said, I'll send it back to you. You make those adjustments. You send it back to me. We'll sign it. And we'll have it back to you by the Friday. That's why it was going to take 4 days. Now there's a couple of things that I question here. Why would you send an offer letter to fight at Wembley on September 15th, going up against Canelo Alvarez and Triple G on September 15th for Cinco de Mayo weekend, when you know this fight's going to be televised in the US? By doing that, you're already going to lose. Yeah, you're already going to lose the Mexican fan base in America. Because they're all going to go to Las Vegas, they're all going to, enjoy their day, etc. And then they're going to go and watch the fight. Or they're going to watch it at a bar. Or they're going to watch it at home with their families and stuff. None of them are going to tune into Joshua Wilder. So again, why would you send that day out in the first place? Now, Eddie Hearn says that, well, there was a period of time where we weren't sure that the Canelo versus Triple G fight was going to happen. Okay, so let me rephrase my point. Why would you go against Canelo? Period. Canelo is the biggest pay-per-view star in boxing. His numbers state that. Period. Yeah, he is the biggest pay-per-view draw in the US. Why would you try and compete with Canelo regardless? Yeah, and another point is because there's no point going up against Canelo, even if it's not against Triple G. Even if Canelo was fighting Jermall Charlo, or whether he was fighting Daniel Jacobs or Billy Joe Saunders, it doesn't matter who he was going to fight. The point is, you don't go up against Canelo, period. He is a superstar in boxing. He's got the biggest pay-per-view numbers. Yeah, I did a video on this when I was talking about Canelo versus Triple G, and I talked about his pay-per-view numbers. They're massive. Yeah, you cannot compete with Canelo in the US. So why would you go up against Canelo Alvarez? Doesn't make sense at all. So why would you put that Cinco de Mayo weekend in there as the date of the fight for Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder? Doesn't make sense. Now he's making the other point on the back of that was, well, we didn't know whether the Canelo Alvarez Triple G fight was going to happen on September 15th, right? But let me put this to you. You knew Canelo was going to fight on September 15th, didn't you, Eddie? You know how you knew he was going to fight on September 15th? Here's a few reasons why. Oscar De La Hoya, when we thought the Canelo versus Triple G fight had fallen through, Oscar De La Hoya had come out and said, no matter what, whether it's against Triple G or not, Canelo Alvarez is fighting September 15th, Cinco de Mayo weekend. We all know that Canelo Alvarez has taken over the Cinco de Mayo dates from Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather used to only fight Cinco de Mayo, which was May and September. Now Canelo's taken over that, and he only fights on Cinco de Mayo weekends, which are May and September. You already know that. Okay? Not only that, didn't Oscar De La Hoya contact you when he thought the fight with Triple G had fallen through to try and set up a fight between Canelo versus Daniel Jacobs on September 15th? Which you, yourself, confirmed that said that, yep, Oscar De La Hoya has contacted us and we're trying to negotiate a potential fight on September 15th between Canelo versus Daniel Jacobs, who you promote. So don't act as if that date wasn't booked out. Yeah? And not only that, I'm going to play you something, yeah? If you didn't know, you definitely would have watched the last fight between Canelo and Triple G. And in the post-fight conference, press conference, Canelo Alvarez, so last year, Triple G and Canelo fought in September 2017. In the post-fight press conference, Canelo Alvarez himself stated that he would rematch or rematch Triple G next year, which was supposed to happen in May, but we know because of the failed drug tests and stuff like that, it was cancelled. But he said he was going to fight in May of 2018 and September of 2018. And here's the audio clip from that press conference to confirm that.
People, please, one more question.
Jorge Mille.
Sorry. Canelo, congrats. It was a great performance, whatever the scores tonight, but would you be ready to fight again this year, or if a rematch happens, you're looking probably for next May?
No, voy a descansar el resto del año, ya sería para el próximo año, mayo o septiembre.
No, I'm going to rest. I mean, I'm going to rest the rest of the year, and we'll be fighting next year, May and September.
Saúl, Jorge Mille por acá.
So there you have it. Canelo Alvarez in the post-press fight conference against his first fight last year, September 2017 versus Triple G. He confirmed that we will be fighting again next year in May and September. I'm going to take the rest of 2017 off. I'll be back in May and September of next year, Cinco de Mayo weekends. So you know, regardless of whether it was Triple G or whoever it was, that Canelo Alvarez was going to have an opponent on September 15th. Why did you try and schedule the fight for that day between Joshua and Wilder? What a waste of time, right? Now, in his interview on the 14th of June with IFL TV, he also turned around and said, this was Eddie Hearn, he also turned around and said that September was completely out of the picture in terms of Joshua versus Wilder, right? He said because obviously Canelo Alvarez and Triple G are now fighting, etc. And he was saying that, well, you know, that means we're not going to go up against them. And if we can't fight in September, then you know what? You know, there's no Wembley either. We can't fight at Wembley either. But funny enough, they're looking to schedule the fight versus Povetkin, right, on the 22nd or the 29th of September. And Wembley is one of the locations they're considering here in London. Listen to this first, and then I'm going to show you the article from ESPN in terms of what Eddie Hearn said about potential venues for Povetkin.
We wanted to do the event in September, but Josh wants the box in September, or wanted to. Still wants to, but may not. And our original offer was based on a September fight. Obviously, last night you got Canelo Golovkin announced, and it's only, I think, 10 or 11 weeks till September 15th. So because of how long they've taken to come back, September's out really anyway. It doesn't work for US TV, doesn't work in a build-up sense either. So we're looking now, if we do Wilder, for more like October, November. But originally, well, Josh wants to do this fight at Wembley, we all do. But obviously we can't do the fight in Wembley if it's not in September.
Now here's the article, right, from ESPN I'm referring to. And I'm going to read out the quotes and this section of the article for you. Here it is. We're fighting Povetkin in September and we're looking at multiple venues and dates, Hearn said. We have a deal with Povetkin agreed, but it's not signed yet. So that's another thing, yeah, which makes me laugh. Okay, this came out on what? This article came out on Thursday, and didn't the WBA mandate that the AJ Povetkin fight be signed within 24 hours? Or AJ was going to get stripped? But I'll come back to that. Anyway, let me read on. Povetkin's camp confirmed that to ESPN. Hearn said the fight will take place September 22nd or September 29th at one of London's major stadiums, Wembley, Twickenham or London Olympic Stadium. Now this article came out on Thursday the 28th of June. This was 2 days after the WBA had stated that Hearn had 24 hours to sign AJ versus Povetkin or they were going to strip Anthony Joshua. Now I'm going to talk about that bit a little bit later, alright? But my point here is, but Eddie, I thought you said there were no available dates in September for Wembley. So if the fight couldn't happen on September 15th, there was no date for Wembley. But, you know, and Wembley and September was completely out of the picture. So how the hell are you fitting Povetkin in? Suddenly what? Suddenly some dates in September have appeared now, yeah? For Wembley. Magically, ooh, we've got some dates here for Wembley for September for the Povetkin fight. But you couldn't get a Wembley date for Deontay Wilder in September. Really? See what I mean? Bullshit. Now remember, I said at the beginning, early on in this video, that Shelly Finkel on the 24th of June said to Eddie Hearn, Eddie, what's the date and the venue? You need to include the date and venue in the contract. And change the rematch clause, of course, as well. But the date and the venue wasn't in the contract. So you need to put a date and venue in the contract, send it back to us, and we'll send it back to you by Friday. Okay? Now, although verbally he was telling Shelly Finkel that the fight would take place in October and November, he still couldn't give a date. And he said most likely at the Principality Stadium. So he's giving a kind of answer. So explain to me how Povetkin's team have been given a definite date. Either the 22nd of September or the 29th of September. Not only that, they've also given 3 different options for a potential venue. It's either Wembley, it's either Twickenham, or it's the London Olympic Stadium. Right? So how is it that they are getting confirmed? They're getting confirmed their questions, and they're getting confirmed venues, confirmed dates, but Shelly Finkel couldn't. Right? That doesn't make sense to me either. You've been negotiating with Team Wilder for over 3 months. You're telling me in that 3 months, you couldn't secure a date in September at Wembley. Or even at the Principality Stadium for Deontay Wilder. Because look at it this way, yeah? One way or the other, Eddie Hearn has been saying that AJ is going to fight in September, right? He's going to fight in September, no doubt about it. Whether it's against Wilder or whether it's against Povetkin, he is fighting in September no matter what. Okay? The WBA, okay, originally, after AJ beat Joseph Parker, they originally mandated AJ to start negotiating with Povetkin. And the article I'll link in the description of this video along with all the other information and evidence I have. In that article, it stated, which was April 11th, that article came out, saying that AJ saying that he would rather fight Wilder than fight Povetkin, his mandatory challenger. But the WBA have ordered and mandated that fight. From that point is when Eddie Hearn asked for an extension or an exemption or whatever to negotiate with Wilder. So you're saying from the April the 11th all the way up to the 24th of June, when Shelly Finkel put that request into you saying that what's the date and the venue, you couldn't secure one single date in September at Wembley. You couldn't secure a date and say, listen Wembley or listen Principality Stadium, I want to secure a date in September with you guys. I don't want it to be on April 15th because Canelo and Triple G are fighting. So somewhere at the back of September, please, because Josh really wants to fight in September. Okay, yeah, we've got a couple of dates here for you. Right, book that date for me. No matter what, you are going to get a fight at your venue. Whether it's against Wilder or whether it's against Povetkin, we are going to have a fight on September. So please book that date for me, Matchroom Boxing and Eddie Hearn. For AJ versus opponent to be confirmed, depending on how the negotiations with Wilder and Povetkin go. Right? You would have still booked that date because you're saying, do you understand? You're saying to everyone that no matter what, in September, Josh is fighting, AJ is fighting. Whether it's Wilder or Povetkin, doesn't matter. So why wouldn't you book a date in September at one of those stadiums, or even Twickenham, because Twickenham has a massive capacity as well. I know the Americans don't really know about Twickenham, but Twickenham has a massive capacity as well, right? Why wouldn't you book one of those venues out? Because you know you're going to fight either Wilder or Povetkin. Doesn't matter if the deal with Wilder falls through, you're still going to fight Povetkin, and if the deal goes through with Wilder, Povetkin gets put on a back seat, and you're fighting Wilder in September at one of those venues. What does it matter? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? doesn't make sense what Eddie Hearn's saying. Do you see what I mean? It doesn't make sense. Now let's talk about this rematch clause. The rematch clause stated that if Wilder wins, AJ gets a rematch. But if Wilder loses, AJ decides whether Deontay Wilder gets a rematch, which Eddie Hearn has again confirmed in this latest IFL interview. Alright, that AJ will decide whether Wilder gets a rematch, which means most likely Wilder won't get a rematch. What kind of rematch clause is that? When Deontay Wilder offered $50 million and he said no rematch clause, he didn't mean just a no rematch clause for AJ, he meant a no rematch clause for him. It would have been winner takes all in that one fight, which is fair because he's not saying I'm going to get a rematch clause, but he's saying you're not going to get a rematch clause, AJ, but neither am I in my $50 million offer to you. So don't try and use that as an example to me when you come up with your excuses. Okay? What's fair is fair. So if you're going to offer Deontay Wilder a rematch clause, you have to offer him a clause which states that he's entitled to a rematch if he loses, because he's a champion as well. That is some bullshit as well. I mean, if you beat him in the first fight, the next fight will be quite lucrative as well. We know it will be very lucrative financially. So why wouldn't you want a rematch with him? You've already beat him once. Why wouldn't you want to do it again and make more money? See what I mean? Double standards. Doesn't matter A side, all that sort of nonsense. When it comes to these little clauses, come on, that's just ridiculous. Yeah, and I can understand why Shelley Finkel was questioning that. So that was another point that he wanted confirmed by Eddie Hearn, altered by Eddie Hearn, sent back to him, and then he could get the contract sent back to Eddie by Friday the 29th. Now, here's my theory as to why Eddie Hearn would not include a date, a confirmed date and venue in the contract. Okay? Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, so he could delay the signing of the contract, which he successfully achieved, because now we're not getting the fight. And two, if Deontay Wilder did sign the contract and sent it back without a date and a venue, he could fill those bits in and say April 2019 under the date part and the venue Wembley. Send it back and say, here's your copy, see you next year, guys. And when they say, oh, we didn't agree to this, you said it was going to be October or November at the Principality Stadium probably. Oh, no, that's not what I said. You signed the contract. You could tell what was going to happen. And then they could still fight Povetkin. Do you get what I'm trying to say? He thinks he's clever, that Eddie Hearn. Yeah, well, he probably is to a lot of you, because a lot of you just buy into his bullshit. And then if Deontay Wilder pulls out of that and says, no, I'm pulling out the fight, I'm not signing it, forget that, we don't agree to that. Yeah, to next year, April, fighting at Wembley. You said October, so because you're not living up to your living up to the expectations you've set with us. You know what? We're pulling out. Then he could turn around and say, see, look, he didn't want to fight Joshua. He didn't want to fight AJ. He's pulling out the fight. He's ducking us. See what I mean? And the other thing is, why you wouldn't listen? He's making the same offer now. So he's saying now that offer's still on the table. Sign the contract, fill in the date, April 29th, April 13th, 2019, Wembley, and we can have the fight for next year. $15 million still on the table for you. But here's the point. The fight becomes bigger in April. It's not the same fight anymore. Because in April, the fight, because you're allowing the fight to build even more between AJ and Wilder, it now becomes financially more lucrative. So that means you're negotiating for a completely different fight. Yeah? So that's what, and he knows this, Eddie Hearn, because he's thinking, well, it'll be bigger by next year. Remember what Barry Hearn said, and I'm going to link that article in the description again for you guys to read. Where Barry Hearn, about a month ago, I think it was now, he turned around and said he was going to advise AJ, he was going to have a meeting with AJ, and he was going to tell AJ that this is how much money you make if you fight Jermall Miller, this is how much money you make if you fight Povetkin, this is how much money you make if you fight Deontay Wilder, and this is how much you make if you fight Deontay Wilder in America. And he said also that he was going to be telling AJ to put the fight off for a year because he thinks you can make more money off the fight next year. Right? And he also said if you allow the fans to be the matchmakers, you'll end up skint, mate. Remember that. So Do you get what I mean? And they know the fight's bigger next year, but they don't want to pay Deontay Wilder any more money. So they're thinking, well, let's get the fight for next year and still pay Deontay a little peanut size of 15 million, and we'll keep all the rest. Old man, yeah, you're right, son, let's do it. But Wilder's too smart for that, Finkel's too smart for that, and they said, hell no. All the offers and the dealings for 2018 are now off the table. Yeah, and now he's saying next year, you want to fight me? 50-50. And they've done that, and he's saying that because they've pissed him off. Of course, yeah, AJ's the A side, but now you made the negotiations even tougher for this fight to happen. Because you know what? You've messed him around so much. You tried to make him look like the bad guy, made him look like he's ducking with all your tricks and your parlor tricks and your, you know, your media propaganda and stuff that you've been playing. You ain't fooled me, and there's a lot of other people you haven't fooled, but you fooled the masses. There's no doubt about that. Okay, and you've pissed Wilder off to the point where you say, nah, you know what? Sod it. I am a champion, 50-50, no fight otherwise. There you go. Now you made it more difficult to make this fight. Okay, so let's talk about this recent IFL interview. All right, now I've watched this interview, but obviously I watched it on my commute on the way to work, and I still want to watch it again to kind of, I've already picked holes in it already, yeah? I've already picked 4 or 5 holes in it already, but I want to watch it again diligently so I can review it properly. But one of the things he said in that interview is that he's willing to offer Deontay Wilder $5 million to fight on DAZN in America, to have a keep busy fight until April, right? And he said not only that, the current offer to fight AJ is still on the table, 15 million, right? Right. So you're telling me you're going to pay in total over 2 fights to Deontay Wilder £20 million. So you're telling me there was more money there to offer Deontay Wilder to fight Anthony Joshua. Because if you're willing to give him £20 million over 2 fights, why couldn't you just give him $20 million over 2 fights? Why couldn't you give him $20 million to fight AJ? Do you see what I mean? He says there's no room for more money because we've done the numbers and this is what it works out and this is the best we can do. We can give him another $2.5 million or whatever it is, but yet you can afford to give him another $5 million. Doesn't make sense to me again. You know? And like I said, the fight in April against AJ between Wilder would be a bigger fight, more lucrative fight financially. So now it's a completely different fight and you're going to have to renegotiate to make that fight. You can't offer the same deal. It's as simple as that. Now, all the AJ fanboys are saying, well, why didn't Deontay Wilder just accept the $12.5 million, etc.? You know, it's 5-6 times worth. His biggest payday. Well, you know what? I'm about to answer that question for you, and I'm going to use an example, yeah? I'm going to use Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao. Now, I'm not saying that AJ's Floyd Mayweather, because Floyd Mayweather was, like, in terms of money he made, Jesus, yeah? And I'm not saying Wilder is Pacquiao, but what I'm saying is, I'm using the example to explain to you as to why that $12.5 million offer is a lowball offer, and you're about to find out why, okay? Now, if you remember throughout the whole Mayweather-Pacquiao saga, one thing Floyd Mayweather tried to do when he tried to make the fight was he tried to offer Manny Pacquiao a flat fee of $40 million. Okay? At that time, and I will link all the articles proving this, that Manny Pacquiao at that time was averaging around about $20 million a fight. That's how much money he was making. So Floyd said, I'll give you $40 million flat fee. It's the biggest payday you've ever made. I'll sign you a check now. That's how much I'm guaranteeing you. Manny Pacquiao rejected the offer. The reason he rejected the offer, because he knew the fight against Floyd Mayweather was probably worth 10 times that. Right? And he said, no, I'm not taking that deal. And that was it. End of negotiations. Now, years later, the fight took place between Floyd and Manny. We had May-Pac, right? And how much money did Manny Pacquiao walk away with? Now, I've found an article which stated, I couldn't remember how much he exactly walked away with. I found an article, again, linked in the description, saying that he was going to walk away with 120, but I'm pretty sure he walked away with about $180 million right? But let's say it was $120 million. Okay, that's 80 million more than Floyd was guaranteeing him years before that with the 40 million offer he made him. Do you see what I mean? And that's what I'm talking about. Now imagine if Pacquiao accepted that 40 million guarantee. How much money would Pacquiao have lost out of? Do you see what I mean? Now I know what all of you are going to say. Oh, Wilder's not Manny Pacquiao. AJ's not Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, I know. Duh. What I'm using here is the example. The scenario is the same in terms of the negotiations that need to take place for a mega fight of massive, of epic proportions. Yeah, when you have fights like this of this magnitude, yeah, you can't just give skimpy little paydays to fighters. You have to give it what it's worth. And look at Lennox Lewis. He just recently tweeted out saying that himself. He just recently tweeted saying that it should be a 60-40 split. Look at Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather. That was a 60-40 split. Look at Triple G versus Canelo, the rematch now. Although Triple G was trying to get 50-50, Oscar De La Hoya offered him 40%. He didn't want that either. So Oscar De La put a bit of his own cash into there and said, we'll give you 42.5%. So when you have fights of this sort of magnitude, especially of the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world, the first time we're going to have two guys fighting to see who's the king of the heavyweight divisions, yeah? Who are fighting for the 4 major sanctioning belts, yeah? That's the WBO, IBF, WBC, WBA, including the Ring Magazine belt to see who becomes the lineal champion of the world. Yeah, of that kind of epic proportions and that kind of magnitude, the money has to be bigger for both fighters. Use your brain. Do you know what I mean? It's unbelievable. You guys just listen to what Eddie Hearn tells you and you don't think for yourself. You don't look historic. This is how I know you lot ain't boxing fans. You're AJ fans, you're not boxing fans. Because if you were boxing fans, you would understand what I'm trying to say here. It's that simple. Like I said, this is going to be the first time that we have an undisputed champion at heavyweight since Lennox Lewis. 2, this is actually the first time we're going to have 2 guys fighting for the undisputed championship of the world who are fighting for the 4 sanctioning belts. Okay, back then it was 3. This is going to be the first time we've seen it for the 4 major sanctioning belts. Back then it was 3 major sanctioning belts when Lennox Lewis was the undisputed champion of the world. This time it's for 4 major sanctioning belts. WBA, WBO, IBF, WBC, and they're going to throw the Ring Magazine Lineal Championship in there as well. Do you know what I mean? This is a massive fight, so the money has to be bigger. Another excuse I'm getting tired of for hearing from the AJ fans is, well, Wilder said it's not about money, it's about legacy. Well, sorry, but I've said this before again and again and again, and you guys still leave the same comments saying, even though I've answered it every single time and provided you evidence every single time, you guys still put that comment out there. Well, okay, let's listen to this. Let's listen to this audio clip from Eddie Hearn, where Eddie Hearn said himself, you know, Josh, he really doesn't care about the money.
But Josh, honestly, he really isn't bothered about the money. But Josh, honestly, he really isn't bothered about the money. But Josh, honestly, he really isn't bothered about the money. But Josh, honestly, he really isn't bothered about the money.
So if Josh really isn't bothered about the money, why can't you offer a 60-40 split, which is fair? If you don't really care about the money. Right? Listen, all you guys need to realise, fighters say things like this. They say it like this all the time. Okay? Whether it's Wilder, AJ, okay? Hell, even Triple G said it recently. He said it before. I don't really care about the money. I just want to give the fans a good fight. Yeah? But yet he haggled relentlessly to try and get 50-50 out of Canelo in the rematch and ended up getting 42.5%. But yet even he was someone who said that he didn't care about, you know, the money. Yeah? When you ever hear any fighter say that, it's BS. Because AJ's just said it, but he still won't give a 60-40 split, will he? And not only that, let's think about it. Wilder did he not just accept a $15 million offer for a fight that could potentially be worth $100 million? So who really doesn't care about the money as much? And why did he take that $15 million? Because he knew this was going to keep going. And he thought, you know what, sod it, I want to make the fight this year. Let's just take the $15 million, and then the rematch, when I have to give him a rematch, I'll make even more money, and he'll take the smaller share of the fight. But then they played these games with him and pissed him off to the point now where he said, you know what, sod it. Next year, for the negotiation, if you want to fight in April, it's 50-50. But my point is, when you look at it, Anthony Joshua was the one who was asking for $50 million, which they provided him, and he didn't want it. He turned it down. He took 4 weeks to make his decision to turn that offer down. Let's not forget that. You conveniently forget all these things. Yeah? And now Wilder's the one who turned around and said that, I'll take 15 million, fine, let's do it, flat fee. So who really doesn't care about the money when you think about it here? AJ or Wilder? Because it sounds like Wilder to me, who doesn't really care about the money. There you go. There's enough evidence just there with what I said to you. And don't even think about saying it, because I can smell the bullshit already. Yeah, you're going to start saying, oh, it took Wilder 4 weeks to accept the $15 million offer. Well, let's not forget, Deontay Wilder, on April 25th, he made a $50 million offer for AJ to fight in the US, plus 50%. Let's not forget that. And then the first article came out on May 27th. I said this in my last video and the video before that. The first article came out on May 27th that Anthony Joshua was going to turn down the $50 million offer because he wanted the fight in the UK. Now, between April 25th to May 27th, that's about roughly 4 weeks. So, before you say that, don't say it. Because if it's okay for AJ to take 4 weeks, it's okay for Wilder to take 4 weeks. Simple as that. Now, another excuse that I'm getting tired of hearing about is Deontay Wilder's record. A lot of you all use the same excuse and the same line. You just repeat Eddie Hearn, whatever Eddie Hearn tells you to say, really. But it goes like this. Oh, Deontay Wilder, he's not fought anyone. He's not fought anyone inside the top 15 rankings. AJ has. Alright, let's talk about it. First of all, stop using BoxRec rankings. BoxRec rankings do not have any influence on the 4 major sanctioning bodies and their rankings. Okay? That's the WBC, the WBA, the IBF, and WBO. They have no influence on... BoxRec has no influence over those rankings. In terms of who gets made mandatory, who's the champion, etc, 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 who gets ranked where. Alright? So let's look, as Deontay Wilder is the WBC champion, let's look at his opponents since he's won his WBC title against Stiverne back in 2015, I think it was. Yes, it was. So let's start from there. He fought Stiverne. He challenged him for his WBC title. He beat the champion, Stiverne. All right. Then he fought in 2015. He fought Johan Duhapis, who was ranked 11th. Then in 2016, he fought Arthur Spilka, who was ranked 8th by the WBC. These are all WBC rankings. Then in 2016, he fought Chris Arreola, who was ranked inside the top 40. But let's not forget, Chris Arreola was a last-minute replacement for Povetkin, who failed a drug test. Right? So you can let him have that one. Gerald Washington, he was in 2017, I believe that was. He was ranked 8th by the WBC. All right. Okay. Again, Washington was a replacement for another fighter. I can't even remember his name now, but he tested positive as well for PED. Now, he then fights Stiverne because obviously he paid Stiverne money, step aside money, because Stiverne became his mandatory challenger in 2017, but which means he was ranked in the top 10. Top 5 probably. Alright. Because Ortiz failed a drug test. He beat Stiverne in that rematch, knocked him out in the first round or whatever it was, and then fought Ortiz, who was ranked number 3rd. So don't tell me none of his opponents were ranked in the top 10, because that's bullshit. Only one of them was ranked in the top 40, and that was a last minute replacement for Povetkin, which was Chris Arreola. And Johan Duhapis was the early one that was just outside of the top 10 rankings of the WBC, ranked at number 11, but he was still a top 15 WBC fighter. The rest of them, all in the top 10. Stop using that excuse. And he has fought a big fight at heavyweight. he fought Luis Ortiz, which every other heavyweight has avoided like the plague. Simple as that. Even Dillian Whyte didn't want to mess with him. That's why he ran off and fought Joseph Parker. Now, a lot of people start saying, oh, well, AJ's fought better opponents. Really? Okay, so let's look at it this way. Take pre-Vladimir Klitschko. So before he fought Vladimir Klitschko, yeah? Before he fought Vladimir Klitschko, who did he fight? Chris Molina? Eric Molina? Yeah? The guy that you guys put down so much, Dominic Brazil? You know? Who did he fight? Name them to me. What, Charles Martin? Don't make me laugh. He's a paper champion, for crying out. Charles Martin was a paper champion. That belt belonged to Tyson Fury. And it was wrongly taken off Tyson Fury. Yeah? So, don't give me that nonsense. Yeah? He then fought Klitschko, an old Klitschko. Let's not forget that, because none of you want to give Wilder any credit for Luis Ortiz. So, why should we give credit for AJ's win now over Vladimir Klitschko? A guy who clearly lacked motivation. Sorry, it's true. Because if he had desire and a motivation to be a champion again, he would have taken the rematch against AJ, wouldn't he? But he didn't, because he thought, oh, I can't be bothered with this anymore. I'm going to retire. Made a nice payday there. Bye. And I spoke about Klitschko's record in my last video as well. That, you know, he fought Tyson Fury in 2015. Lost all his belts to him. But his last real competitive fight against a top elite fighter was David Haye back in 2011. Yeah, he had a good fight against Povetkin, but he dominated Povetkin. So in between 2011 against David Haye, right up to Tyson Fury, he didn't really fight anyone. You know why? Because I've explained this before. Listen, the heavyweight division isn't stacked. So there's only a handful of top heavyweights in there. The rest aren't there. They're not elite. They're not world class. So if you're not going to give Deontay Wilder any credit, you can't give AJ any credit then for the people that he's fought. Sorry, he's got one name on his record then, and that's Vladimir Klitschko, who I've just explained his record wasn't that great either. So I don't understand what you lot are getting at. Do you see what I mean? It's easy to pick holes in anyone's career at heavyweight because it's not a stacked division. So while we're on the subject of Vladimir Klitschko, yeah, let's talk about the next thing you guys are saying. Well, why didn't he ever try to fight Vladimir Klitschko and unify the division? Okay, so you know what? I've done my research, as I always do, and as always, links to these articles are in the description of the video. So let's talk about this one first. This was a article by Sky Sports, and I'm only going to read you the end part. You can read the rest yourselves. But this is Wilder and his response to Vladimir Klitschko saying that he hadn't fought anyone. And this is what he had to say. He's been fighting guys we don't know names of, or how to pronounce, or where they come from. They came out of a rabbit box, you know. So for him to say that is very laughable to me. That's Wilder saying about Vladimir Klitschko. Yeah. He already knows what it's going to be when he faces me, of course. If I fight everybody at the top, then that lessens the chance of him having to face me, because of course I feel he wants me to lose. And it says Wilder, however, still believes a unification fight with Klitschko will happen. He goes on to say, when I think about Klitschko fight, my mind for some reason has it in the month of September next year. Wilder added, a lot depends on mandatories being out of the way and having a clear date, but he wants it and I want it. Everybody wants that fight. So there you go. That's Deontay Wilder pretty much calling Vladimir Klitschko out. Now this is what Vladimir Klitschko had to say in return. And again, I'm only reading the end part of the article. You can read the rest yourself. I'd rather fight with Wilder in a pay-per-view fight, and it would be nice to have another belt. But there's one heavyweight champion for a long time. If anyone wants to get it, they need to get to me. Do I look forward to it? Yes. Am I desperate for it? No. Is it interesting for the public? Yes. Let's see how things develop. Later there will be time to consider Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder fights. But now it's not the time to talk about that. I cannot underestimate Jennings. This is when he's about to fight Brian Jennings. So he's saying, you know what? They both sound like they're up for it, but Wilder seemed like he was more up for it from those comments, because Vladimir Klitschko said, I'm not desperate for it. Do you know what I mean? So for all you guys out there saying, oh, he's never called out Klitschko or tried to make a fight with Klitschko, that fight potentially would have happened. But of course, Vladimir Klitschko had to have his mandatory defense against Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury beat him. Then obviously then there was that whole year-long layoff where they were trying to organise the rematch between the two of them. Then Tyson Fury had his personal problems, vacated all his belts. Klitschko was out of action by 2 years then, so there was no need to fight Klitschko, was there, anymore? See what I mean? But you lot claim he's never ever wanted that fight. Again, links in the article of the description of this video. And one more thing on the whole Klitschko thing. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you know, Wilder didn't chase Klitschko, Wilder didn't call out Klitschko. Well, did Klitschko ever really call out Wilder before these articles? Because I don't remember hearing about it. Do you? You know, wasn't Klitschko interested in becoming undisputed champion of the world? Why has it always got to be Wilder? See what I mean? Double standards. Works both ways, guys, yeah? Let's not forget that. Okay, so let's move on now to the WBA and their 24-hour deadline. Now, let's start off with this first point, yeah? Okay? Remember earlier on, I said that the WBA said that you had to sign the contract in 24 hours between AJ and Povetkin. Well, look what it says here on this article link from what I showed you earlier on. We're fighting Povetkin in September and we're looking at multiple venues and dates. Hearn said, we have a deal with Povetkin, agreed, but it is not signed yet. And that article came out on the 28th of June. 2 days after the WBA had stated they were setting a 24-hour deadline for the fight between AJ and Povetkin to be signed. So why hasn't AJ been stripped of his title? You strip him of his title now, right? Of course not. You're not going to do that because he makes you loads of money. Which means you were never ever planning on stripping Anthony Joshua. So why couldn't you just extended the negotiations for another week between... Why couldn't you give Team Wilder, Team AJ an extra week to finalise the deal? And if the contract hadn't come back, right, from Shelley Finkel by Friday or by Monday next week at the latest, or this week at the latest, should I say, on Monday, yeah, then by all means, go ahead and mandate the fight. And Eddie Hearn, in his recent IFL interview, which I've linked in the description of this video, has stated that Kugan Cassius asked him, like, couldn't you have asked them for, like, just an extra week, just to kind of see if the contract would have come back? And he said, no, you know, there was no point asking them. Like, no, I didn't ask them because, you know, you know what? They weren't having it. There was no point. So he's admitted he didn't even attempt to try and get at least one more week out of the WBA. What would that have killed? That wouldn't have killed the WBA. It would not have killed them. And look at the proof. 2 days later, did they strip Anthony Joshua? No. But yet you set a 24-hour deadline for the contract to be signed between him and Povetkin. Now, I'm going to use an example here of the WBA and you know, kind of expose their bullshit, yeah? I'm going to talk about Keith One-Time Thurman. Right? Keith One-Time Thurman, when Mayweather was still fighting, when Mayweather was still an active fighter, Keith One-Time Thurman, right, was the WBA regular welterweight champion of the world. Floyd Mayweather was holding the super version of the belt, right? Which made Keith Thurman his mandatory challenger in a sense, yeah? Keith Thurman, you might have remembered, Keith Thurman banged on about that for God knows how long. That he wanted this shot against Floyd, the WBA weren't giving it though, etc, 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 yeah? If you've been watching boxing long enough and you keep an eye on things, you will remember that. Did they ever mandate that fight? No. Why not? Did they ever, you know, threaten to strip Floyd Mayweather? No. Why not? If he didn't make that fight or he didn't take that fight? No. Why not? Now let's lose Keith one-time Thurman again. Since Floyd Mayweather's retirement, Keith Thurman was promoted from regular champion to super WBA welterweight champion of the world. Okay, now Keith Thurman's last fight was on, what was it, 4th of March 2017 against Danny Garcia, right? Unification fight, WBA, WBC. Okay, now Keith Thurman has been inactive since then. Injury, got married, came back, tried to do a comeback, got injured, got his hand injured again. Now apparently he's coming back in August, whatever, yeah? In that time that he became the he was promoted to super champion after Floyd retired, even after he fought Danny Garcia, has the WBA ever mandated or actually ever issued him a mandatory challenger? No. Right? He's been inactive since the Danny Garcia fight. It's probably been about 18 months, 19 months, something like that. In August it'd be freaking, you know, it'd be close to a year, the rate he's going, Keith Thurman. Have they stripped Keith Thurman of his title, saying that you've been inactive, we can't have the belt out for that long, the championship off the line that long? Or have they turned around and said to him, hey, guess what, Keith, we're going to take the belt off you, but we're going to make you a champion in recess. Now, for those of you who don't know what a champion recess is, it's for this very example I'm going to give you about Keith Thurman. If you have a fighter who's been inactive for a period of time due to injury, etc. and stuff like that, the boxing organisations can make a champion in recess. So they take the belt off the champion and say, look, you've been inactive for too long due to injury, we can't have the belt out of action that long. Give us a belt, because you know what thing about sanctioning fees, right? We're going to put it up in a vacant title fight against these two other top contenders in the WBA rankings. When you come back from your injury and you're fully fit, by all means, you can let us know and we will arrange, we'll order a fight for you to fight the current champion so you can win your belt back. Yeah? That's a champion in recess. It's kind of like being the WBC's Emeritus champion. Like Tony Bellew's the Cruiserweight WBC Emeritus champion. So he can come back and he can request to challenge the champion at any point he wants. Right? Which is what he's trying to say he might do. That he may challenge the winner of Usyk and Gassiev, for example. And go for the undisputed Cruiserweight title of the world. Right? So have the WBA done any of that to Keith Thurman? No. So, again, why did you suddenly put all this pressure on Anthony Joshua to fight his mandatory challenger? Why did you suddenly put your foot down in this 24-hour deadline? Could have given a week's extension. It's only a week. It's not like you're asking for another 30 days, another 60 days. That I can understand, but you could have given a week. Right? That's what I'm on about. WBA, it's bullshit. What they're doing is bullshit. What they're saying is bullshit. So, let's talk about, you know, the $50 million offer, AJ not wanting to fight in the US, etc. And I always like to touch on this bit because people conveniently forget a few things, right? So, he said he didn't want to fight in the US because of the refs and the judges. Well, why were you okay? Why were you ready to fight Vladimir Klitschko in Las Vegas? Right? So when he beat Vladimir Klitschko, Vladimir Klitschko still hadn't retired, who was deciding whether he wanted the rematch with AJ, and they were saying that they were going to have the fight potentially in Las Vegas, and AJ said yeah, he wanted to fight in Vegas. And this is a soundbite. I played it in my last video. I'm going to play it again, right? Of, you know, AJ saying this in an interview to Dante's Boxing Nation. Shout out to his channel, yeah. But I'm going to play it for you guys again. Here you go.
So, I mean, are y'all gonna bring it to Vegas? You know we want to see it out here in the States.
Yeah, I'd like to, for sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? But if Klitschko wants a rematch, we're here. We're ready. So.
Oh, so he still doesn't really know if he wants it for sure.
We'll see. We'll wait and see. But I want to fight in Vegas.
You want to fight in Vegas? Okay, man.
I want to win so I can go to an after party.
That's what it is.
No problem. So, we'll get down. Yes, boss.
Your next fight is when?
November.
Yeah.
November.
Where back?
Potentially here. Potentially.
I hope it is around the 29th.
Around like middle of November, if it's here, middle, later November.
So there you have it. AJ saying he wanted to fight Vladimir Klitschko in his rematch with Vladimir Klitschko in Las Vegas. You know, but not only that, he's also recently said in the last few months, etc., that he'll fight Jarrell Miller in Brooklyn, Barclays Center, New York, America. So if you were to fight Jarrell Miller, were you not afraid of the judges and refs back then when Eddie Hearn was trying to pitch that fight? Were you not afraid of the American judges and refs when you were going to potentially fight Vladimir Klitschko in Vegas? But you had a problem fighting Deontay Wilder in America for $50 million plus 50%. Right? See what I mean? Doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. There's kind of nothing but glaring contradictions and hypocrisy. Yeah, all you AJ fans just use whatever Eddie Hearn says and regurgitate it. You don't use your own brains. Whenever I'd had a debate, I had a troll on my channel. I actually blocked him now because he was annoying me. But I slam dunked him in our first debate. Right, it was the early debate we actually had. I provided what points to video links, what minute to go and watch it at, skip to this minute, listen to what he says here, provided articles. I answered all his points. And I've noticed with these AJ fans, when they come back and you say answer my points, they say they come up with more questions, or they use the same questions again and they just rephrase them. But in actual fact, they actually can't answer your points because you know what? They don't know the facts. They don't do research. They just listen to whatever Eddie Hearn tells them, and they go with that constantly, and they just keep asking the same questions repetitively, keep regurgitating the same questions over and over again, just rephrase them. That's why I don't bother. That's why I ended up blocking the guy, because I thought you're just asking the same questions, but you're rephrasing them. So I whooped you already once in one debate. Don't need to do it again. But look, that's my take on this whole AJ stuff. You know, I had more to say. You know, I still got to watch, you know, Eddie Hearn's interview again properly this time. I've already picked holes in it, but I want to watch it again from start to finish properly, diligently, and I'll probably do a review video on it. But you know what? More and more news keeps coming out. He keeps saying more and more things, and they just keep dropping themselves in it. Nothing but contradiction. That's why I call him Contradiction Eddie Hearn. It's all bullshit. Yeah, they never wanted the fight, and now they're once again putting all the blame on Deontay Wilder. When if you want someone to blame, it's Eddie Hearn. Alright guys, that's all I got for you on this one. Like, share and subscribe. Until next time, this is Cyphbox reminding you to keep it real.